Hello, this is a review of the lesson from March 11th, 2022. And for warm-ups, we had you do a regular scale from G all the way up to high A and back down, like this. A couple things to watch when you do that. Make sure that your C is a closed C, the pinky finger's down, right? Couple times, I think one time it was, one time it wasn't. That's fine. The other thing we worked on was the transition when you're coming down the scale from E to D. Last week we talked a lot about going from D to E and not getting a crossing sound, which is an unintended note between two notes when you're transitioning, right? We don't want a crossing sound. And you did a great job of going from D to E. The E down to D was a little bit trickier today, but we sorted it out. And basically what you want to remember to do is when you're going from E, right? We don't want a crossing sound, lot of fingers moving. We want to go ahead and very microscopically speaking, lift these up, the D fingers up, before you bring the E finger down. Now I'm talking very slight, but to practice it, it's fine to slow it down. So you would go like this. 2 steps, and then you will gradually speed it up. Right? So that's definitely a thing to practice on your own, going from E down to D, no crossing sound. Maybe pause the video, slow it all down until you get that a little more comfortable. And that was about it for the scale. Otherwise, looking really good. The next thing we talked about was the G-D-E triplets. Last week, I had you do a very simple exercise. It was at the bottom of your initial page in your packet. And I think it was just low G and then low A, right? And those were separate, right? And what I want to do now is transition over to exercise sheet 1. And this, I sent this in an email for you. And what I like about it, number one, is it has the entire scale written out here. And then it has the entire scale with G grace notes, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then you skip these for a moment. We'll get to those. The G-D-E section has 3 lines of G-D-E triplets. And about the first line gets you, well, it gets you up to C, which is good. And then it goes back down and goes up and down the lower part of the scale. And the thing that you want to pay attention to is transitioning without taking a breath from your first set of triplets. In this situation, it's the triplets on low G, 2 sets, to the next set of triplets, which is low A. And what I mean by that is when you play this last low G here, at the end of your G-D triplets on low G here, the next note you would play is a G grace note onto A. So it's these transitions that we focused on this lesson. So if I played G-D-E triplets, 2 of them, there I am on low G. The next sound I must make is a G grace note landing on low A. So that transition goes like this. And then you could hear I continued with the G-D-E triplet for low A. So when you combine them, there's no break. I'm going to do the first 2 bars of that exercise line. I didn't take a breath. I just played them. So that's what I need you to work on for the next week. And then going up this, continuing, right, the next bar, after the low G's and the low A's, we go to B. And you finished on the last low A here. You do a G grace note to B, and that's your first G grace note of the next triplet. And then the same thing happens to C. And it continues on. So let's do from low A. I've just finished the low A triplet sequence, and I'm going to lift my G grace note finger and my B finger at the same time. But then I drop the G finger. That's the G grace note on B. and then you saw I just went into the triplets. So if I combine those first 3 bars, it sounds like this. Right? And then the next bar goes up to C. I'm in the B position. I need to get to the C position, but a G grace note has to come first. So I go like this. I lift the G grace note finger, get my fingers in the C position, drop the G grace note finger. In slow motion, it looks like this. Now you heard a strange sound when I did that in slow motion. This chanter does that. Also, we're not going to be playing it that slowly, so don't worry about that sound. Again, just to see the motion, I'm going to have you play along while I just finger it without blowing. I'm in the B position. I'm going to lift up the high G finger, grace note finger, and get the low hand in the C position. Hold this for a moment, and then drop the G grace note finger. Try that on your own. Maybe pause the video. And when you come back, we can put the first 4 bars together of the G, D, E triplet line. Here we go. We're going to go G, D, E triplets on low G, low A, C, and stop. So low G, low A, B, C, and stop. I made a mistake there. The first 4 notes. Ready? 1, 2. So that's what we're looking for this week. And then once you get comfortable with those first, 4 bars, right? Go ahead and play around with the rest of this line. Continue and play around with all 3 lines here of the G, D, E triplet exercise. It's a lot of fun, and we can play that together at the lesson next week. Okay, the last thing we worked on, which is really, really important, is the G grace note scale. Last week we worked on the first, I think we worked all the way up to D. Yeah, we started on low G and we worked up to D, and then we stopped. And the reason I stopped there is I wanted you to get used to G grace notes. And here we are on D, right? We've gone and now we need to do G grace note up to E. A lot going on because we have to lower these fingers and make the grace note and land on E. So in slow motion, it looks like this. Try that on your own. Without the hesitation, like I did. So again, what's happening in slow motion is I'm on the D position. I lift these 2 fingers, leave the F finger in place, bring the grace note finger down and the D fingers down, so you get an E. Try that on your own, and then when you come back, we'll finish the scale. Okay, we're gonna go do a G grace note scale all the way up from low G to high A. Ready? 1, 2. Now I had a little something tricky in there going from F to high G that I did not explain. We're going to talk about that right now. When you get up to F on the scale, right, your next note is high G, and you can't play a G grace note on high G because you can't play a grace note on itself. So what we do is we play a thumb grace note instead, and it is shown that way in the music, right? So we're on F. We're going to temporarily take both of these fingers off, the pointer finger and the thumb, and then return the thumb, and these all stay off the holes, which gives you your high G. So it goes like this. That is a thumb grace note to high G from F. That's how we play the high G in the scale. Then the high A, there's no grace note on high A. You just play the high A, no grace note. Now it's time to go back down the scale. This would be a good time to pause the video and try that, of course, on your own, right? Now we have to go back down the scale. We're on high A. Now we go to G. Can't do anything there. But now we can, going back down, we can do the thumb grace note to F. So we're going back down the scale from high G to F is where we want to go, but we want to play a G grace note in between. So we go, we're not playing a G grace note, we're playing a high A grace note, thumb grace note. That's how that looks. So try that a few times on your own. Okay, and then we'll come back. All right, we've just done the thumb grace note from high G to F. Now we just do a G grace note down to E from F. Right? So that gets us to the stage where we need to go back down to D. And this was a transition that took a little bit of time just to think about coming up the scale. Similarly, we need to think about it a bit coming down. We're on E. We need to lift the G grace note finger, get our fingers in the D position, right? And bring the fingers down like that. So we're on E. You could slow it down a lot and you could go. That's how it looks in slow motion. In normal speed, it's. So this is a great time to pause and the video and take a close look at the transition from E to D with a G grace note. Okay, now that you've looked at all the tricky parts of the G grace note scale, we can finish it up, right? We're going to continue down from D, going down. Okay, if you've never gone down the scale before with a G grace note finger, now is the time to pause the video and try that, especially just from D down. Okay, eventually what we want to be able to do is do an entire scale, low G up to high A, back down to low G with G grace notes. That's what this is next, and if you're not ready to follow along with this, that's fine, but work your way toward this. Okay, G grace note scale. Ready? 1, 2. Happy chantering.